Welcome to the Educational Passages podcast. Educational Passages is a nonprofit organization that seeks to connect people around the world to the ocean and each other through unique global experiences. I'm your host, Cassie Stymist. This is More Than a Miniboat Part 2, all about our trip to Ireland we took back in March when we had Juliet Fluty with us as an intern who since graduated. Lisa Swanson also joined us, so hear more about all of the adventures and the things that we connected with above and beyond.
Definitely needed a part 2 because, there was so much more than us. Like, obviously, going into the classrooms were amazing and connecting with the kids, but the community members that we connected with and the real, trying to process the impact that Educational Passages has just needed a whole episode into itself. So here we are, part 2. Let's get into it.
We drove down to the Cliffs of Moher, which was absolutely amazing before anybody else showed up. Yeah. And then we did our trip to Kerry and Waterville and reconnected with Mini Main and all of that. But our adventures took us down to Cork, which is where Lisa's project was based. We were greeted by Nadine and another student at Barry Row, which was amazing because Nadine is the niece of Mary Graves, who received the Miniboat in Nantucket and helped us with that relaunch.
That's crazy.
Nadine had received the Crimson Current at Barry Row the previous school year, and she went back for Thanksgiving. Got to see it in person. So we were warmly greeted by the students. They had signs on the door, "Welcome Lisa and Cassie and Educational Passages." And we walk into the classroom and the whole bulletin board was about the project and the map and the tracking and the letters inside and the newspaper article of the students in the news. Absolutely incredible, warm welcome. We were greeted by the whole community up front of people that had been involved.
Yeah. I think the profound impact of the communities, just walking in the door was just amazing to me. Because again, coming, like we were talking about in the last episode, coming in from kind of an outsider perspective onto a project that's kind of been ongoing for a really long time, seeing the impact of this project to the kids was just amazing. And seeing how, Rory probably wouldn't have, or maybe he would have, knowing Rory, the man, the myth, and the legend himself, going into the classroom and connecting him, kind of similar to what I'm doing with the Mini Main and connecting him to all these different topics that go along with the mini boat. That may not have happened. These kids may not have been, exposed to that kind of education, and Rory would have never been able to meet them, and Billy wouldn't be able to talk about, we'll get more into it, but be able to talk about what he does in fishing around Ireland and stuff like that. The connections and, all the pinpoints that these mini boats are creating is just so amazing.
Yeah, that's what stood out to me is that the Barry Row community was a very intricate community that got involved in helping every single student take part in this. So when the Crimson Current ended up in the cave, Billy recovered it and brought it home. Katie, his daughter, got to open it and see all the stuff. She sent the letter to Morristown Baird. "Hi, I'm Katie," and I could read that whole thing off, but then Rory helped bring it into the classroom, and he made sure Billy and Katie were in the room when the boat was brought to the classroom. And yeah, Rory's been fantastic, and he did these extra learning projects, and he's volunteering his time to do that.
Yeah, we love you, Rory.
but the community that comes together help the students learn. Yeah. That's another shared thing between all of us that we're seeing it in Ireland. We see it here in the U.S., part of the mini boat magic and what Educational Passages has to offer, I think, with every little mini boat. But the Morristown Baird students back in New Jersey had been pen paling with the students at Barry Row back and forth multiple times. They sent each other holiday Christmas cards and, care packages and just a really great back and forth. And we got to Zoom with them while we were there at Barry Row during this visit. And one of the students that had been the original pen pal students or the receivers of the boat had actually moved to a different school because they had kind of graduated, what have you, to a new class. And so they ended up busing back 2 different schools because the students had spread out. And they all came back, and that room was full. It was full of a brand new class with Sinead, her new students, and then her older students, and they all came back for this. And we heard from Amira on the Zoom saying that she really missed it. Mm-hmm. She missed having a pen pal. Something was missing in her life. Absolutely amazing. So glad we get to make these connections.
Yeah, and I think it was really cool to see both sides of the generations of students with the exposure to this project. I think it was cool for Sinead's current students to see, oh, this is what we're gonna do. This is, getting them excited about the connection. Lisa mentioned that they're still gonna keep doing, their connection and things like that with their ongoing.
Yeah, and how do you, again, onboard new students to a project that had been so deeply involved with the students the year before? You're right. It was great for those kids to see that excitement, to see what was possible, and to know that they get to be a part of the next step as well, because those boats, their boat was back at sea. It was launched the day that we left Ireland, actually. And so we can actively track that and see where it goes. And who knows, maybe it'll end up back in Cork, Ireland.
Crazy. And that's the thing too, all of these boats that are still out there, you're still making the connections, even if they're out in sea. You don't necessarily need to have a kit and build a boat to really make those connections. You can make the connections with boats that have already, that are already out there. I think that's what Mini Main especially is all about, because my kids don't necessarily get to actually see the boat, but they are heavily involved in the global citizenship aspect of EP and everything that we do.
Yeah, so we talked about that on our part 1, for those that haven't listened to it yet.
Go listen to it.
And we're also, by being there in person, we're able to talk to Tom McSweeney a little bit about the bigger picture and educational passages, that this is one boat of over 200. So think about the amazing connections and the students involved, and that this is just one of many. So Tom is a well-known news reporter. He's got his own podcast, Maritime Ireland, very respected in the maritime industry all around Ireland. He has been following the students at Barry Row. He was at the port of Cork when they dropped off the Miniboat so that it could be relaunched off the independent container line. He's been there for every part of the story, and I think that really helps share their work. And again, those community ties are really important. And then you were able to be interviewed and share a little bit about your internship, which made me really proud.
Having people like that wanting to share what these students are doing just makes the whole lot of difference.
And then we had a 3-hour tea.
Oh, I love tea.
The teacher's room after.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. It was a great day.
Yeah.
So we'll put a link to Tom's podcast and that interview in the show notes. We also recorded that whole Zoom and the connection between the classes, so you can see the perspective from the students in New Jersey, their reactions, and also those in Ireland. And I think that's what it's about, is how are they responding to these connections. It's exciting for all of us and the community members, but we really need to make sure we're inspiring the youth, because that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So the next day was another rainy day, but we went over to Billy McCarthy's house, and he gave us a tour of the cove where he keeps his boat. He's a fisherman. He told us about, his family connection to that place as well, which was really neat. And then we kind of climbed around and went inside this giant rocky cave where the mini boat had been found, and it makes so much sense as to why it was there. He explained to us how the winds and the currents work in that area, where he knew right away when we told him that there was a boat in that area where it might be. So thanks and shout out to Billy for bringing us around and sharing your stories.
After we went to Billy's, we were able to hang out with our friend Rory Jackson, who runs the Ocean Plastics Project. We were able to see his whale watching boat, which for me personally, I'm very passionate about boating, and I'm working on my captain's license right now. So he was able to share with us, things that he does with his Ocean Plastics Project and the community outreach that he does to spread awareness of marine debris. And it was just amazing to hear someone, who's done similar projects that I have in the past, and seeing his perspective of the impact that he does with his passions.
And then we saw it in real life in the beach where he keeps his boat, and all the marine debris that washes up in that area. So that was a little eye-opening, as to some of the things that we saw there. But yeah, we went to dinner afterwards as well. We had more conversations. We were able to talk to Rory more about his work, and we thanked everybody involved and gave them their Miniboat crew tumblers and gushers, which is a U.S. candy. It was really interesting to see their reactions to that. That was a fun interaction. So the next day, while we were in Cork, we went downtown and we went to the old Cork Waterworks and met Mervyn. And I had worked with Mervyn a few years ago on the HVS Cruiser Miniboat. And that project had gone through COVID, and they got some support from Creative Ireland to make it an art project. And they submitted artwork and designs and ended up printing them on a vinyl wrap that went around the mini boat.
Fancy schmancy.
It was awesome.
Those kids were so excited about the project, and even they made like a book of all of the students' artwork that Mervyn was able to show us, and it was so
yeah, there was well over 300 entries, I think. And this is just from this was just Cork. We had like a half an hour visit with Mervyn. We had to get going.
Yeah, that could have easily been a whole day trip in itself.
Because we had a tour up in Galway at the Marine Institute that we were trying to get there in time for.
Amazing.
So I had seen the lobby of the Marine Institute through the eyes of photographs and press releases with a mini boat named Lancer. Again, a few years before I had been involved, but I remember the videos and how the student named Caitlin and her teacher, Michael Connor, got to visit Ireland, and they got to take the same tour that we did. But yes, I was geeking out.
We were total nerds. Total nerds.
So my background is in ocean observations, the buoys and the gliders and the things that collect ocean data over here in the U.S. But it was really neat for me to see from the perspective of the Marine Institute that they have this similar infrastructure. We also got a tour of their lab, and they had like the Image Flow Cytobot, which is actually made over in the U.S. We saw gliders, which again are actually made near where I live. So really to make those connections and be inspired to then help students see those connections.
One of the things that I really enjoyed about the Marine Institute was like when we were walking around, when people like think of labs, they think of, people in white coats, they think of very sciencey, very, black and white, whatever else. But even us walking around and seeing the artwork that has been done, and there were so many beautiful murals, and they had 2 or 3 things of like a fish that was entirely made of shells, and just having that aspect of the integration of art and science, I think is so important and so rare, because I feel like science in itself is an art form, and like integrating that into even visually of the Marine Institute, I think was really one of my favorite parts, being someone who loves, you too, like being people that love art, love drawing.
I love that intersection. And then we ended up seeing the similar artist artwork at the aquarium when we went over there that had done that mural at the Marine Institute. But when you were just describing about walking around the Marine Institute, what was eye-opening was that the jobs are not always in the lab, is where my brain just went.
Yeah.
And how, there was offices, but like rooms and just a lot of collaboration in this common area where people just go and meet and talk. And I think that's something else that's interesting, is that science is not always in a lab with a lab coat. There is the marine technician, and there's the program manager, and there's the science director, and there's the data person. There's so many different jobs. And that was one thing that was eye-opening for me for all of our trips around Galway.
Yeah.
A lot of working parts and a lot of opportunity that we can inspire these students to then go and pursue.
And I think especially, in the U.S., and I'm coming from this perspective of someone who is, almost done with college, has, been through COVID and all that in my student-led career. I think in our education system, of the way that we expose our students of like, you need to know what you want to do when you go in, and there's only, one thing that you can do once you get your degree. there are so many things that you can do with your degree. I mean, honestly, look at Cassie and I. I mean, she got her degree in marine science and mine is in marine science and education. I think I changed my major every single year of my time at UNE. And that's the thing, is like, you should do something that makes you happy and is integrating everything that you're learning, as well as like, you know, bettering the world and yourself. And that's a huge thing that I've learned during my time at EP and during, you know, our trip, was that you shouldn't feel like you have to put yourself in a box with what you want to do. And you should be able to really like open up your sails and just coast wherever you feel as though you're passionate about. And I think, you know, going to places like the Marine Institute and seeing all of these wonderful different people like Shane and Kushla and all of them work together for a common goal of like spreading awareness of what is going on, you know, in our oceans. And, you know, the ocean connects us all and everybody's impacted by what's going on. So I think that was also like probably my favorite part. It's just seeing all of the different people that work together for a common goal. And even if they're all interested in the different aspects, they all collaborate in some way.
I'm reminded that when I went to university, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I think I was part of the generation of, I'm going to be a dolphin trainer, but knowing that that's not really exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I didn't know what opportunities were out there. And so I think it's kind of like a mini boat. You just got to jump in,
see where it takes
launch yourself and see where it takes you. And don't be afraid to just kind of drift along and see what opportunities you go by, and plant yourself somewhere if you want to. But it's okay to drift and adventure and learn. And we're always learning.
And that's the thing too. Once you get to a different place, just like the mini boat, we're going to keep this corny thing going. Just like the mini boat, every time you land somewhere, you're going to, you know, turn into something different, and it's going to be beautiful. And then you just coast off to the next place.
You relaunch yourself from another place. So go down the path that you want to. If you want to do marine science, go for it. Oceanography, go for it. You want to build boats, go for it.
But don't forget where you've been. Keep that GPS track going. You can look back at different points, see how you got there, but keep sailing ahead.
So with that idea of career exploration and inspiration and education, I do have to shout out big time to Kushla.
Woohoo!
And the Marine Education Explorers Program. So Friday morning, and this is the Friday before St. Patrick's Day in Ireland.
Still doesn't feel real, man. Still does not feel real.
I highly recommend being in Ireland during St. Patrick's Day. Absolutely incredible. But what was really great is we went to the LACA school in Galway, and they were all decked out in green, in fanfare, and shamrocks everywhere. So really, you know, proud of their culture, proud of that heritage. And we went to LACA. This is the school that I worked with through POGO, which is the Partnerships for Observations of the Global Ocean. We did an initiative together where they built and launched 4 mini boats from 4 countries who partnered their oceanography member with a school, built a mini boat. They all got launched off the research vessel, the Polar Stern, on a north-south transect from Germany to Cape Town, South Africa. And this is back in 2012. And so the LACA school was the partner from the National University in Galway, where Sheena Fennell had been the lead oceanographer to help the LACA students do the mini boat. They did such a fantastic job. And it reminds me of the work you're doing with, you know, they had the bulletin boards everywhere, and they really did the science lessons at every part with the students as they were building it.
That is just so cool. Can we just take a second to appreciate what Cassie just said? Like that, like what opportunity for you to give to those students? Like genuinely, they're not only getting their hands dirty, making these boats, learning about, you know, learning about the ocean and everything like that, but they're also getting such global exposure to all of these different
and that's something that POGO provided. Them sponsoring this project and initiative got these kids to learn and work directly with Sheena, an oceanographer,
that is just so
who was telling them, hey, your boats are going to collect information about the ocean that I want, right? Our oceans are changing. The information you're collecting is helpful to me. And you're right. That was an incredible program and model.
Silence, man. That is so cool. Getting them immersed into what they're doing and really giving them purpose to, like, I talked about it a little bit in the last episode of, like, kids are losing that why am I here aspect of why are we learning about this? What is the point? If I want to know something, I just pop that right into Google and then there it is. And doing a project like that where their contribution is going to put together a bigger piece of the puzzle is just, that's so cool.
It's going to contribute to everyone's better understanding of our changing ocean, and I can't think of a better way to do that and to help all the generations figure this out together.
Yeah, it's just so cool. All right, keep going.
So we talked about it in the last episode of how our goal really is to help these experiences carry forward long term. And so there's nothing like hearing from a student what they remember, what carries forward with them. And I got goosebumps at LACA because they had done this project in 22 and remembered all of it. And I got to share with them where their boat went and the status of it.
They made us posters.
They had made us posters of the experience. There's newspapers all over the school. They were so proud of this initiative to have just built the boat and sent it out. And that was the accomplishment, right? And of course, there's a lot that goes into just to that moment. But then their boat was launched, and it was actually the first launched in the South Atlantic.
It was cool, too, because we were able to share the other Miniboat stories while we were there and being able to be like, have them reflect on their project, but also this is what other kids around Ireland are doing and the connections that they're making. I was able to talk about my project. Lisa was able to talk about hers, and like having that connection was really cool, and to see their faces like, oh, like that's where their mini boat went, and connecting them.
Oh yeah. So I know there's interest. I know the boat's there. We need some help to kind of move that thing forward, because I asked the students, what do you want to do next? And their reaction was, can we relaunch it? It's like, well, so
they want it back.
Well, they want to see it go somewhere else again. So, we'll have to work on that. And meanwhile, they can track all these other boats that are out there. I said at the end that, one of the students we had to go because, there was going to be this concert. And, you're welcome to join us if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still can't believe this was real. So we walked over to the auditorium, and there was a few dozen students up front playing various musical instruments, traditional Irish music. And there we were on the Friday before St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, sitting there with the children of LACA School, celebrating with their music.
I think that moment of seeing that school come together, we were able to learn about, Irish dances, and they threw us in there and we were dancing with some of the other teachers. It was incredibly embarrassing, but it was super fun. We were able to dance and listen to their music, and, they had all of their students from the different classes in one gymnasium. And I really think my one of many, may I add, but super tearjerker moment was sitting, we were just about to leave, and we had gone back for something, and we were listening to the students, and I could cry thinking about it. They were all just kind of like hand in hand, like hand to shoulder, singing Ireland's Call. And they were all singing it collectively, and just, so proud to be where they're from. Seeing that kind of community come together for, the commonality of we love where we're from was just, it was unspeakable. It was just amazing, and I loved it.
I'm so glad you had that moment. We had an appointment for a tour at the Marine Institute, and along the way, the most magical thing happened.
We were driving with, if you close your eyes and imagine it, we were driving down this long road. Give a little ASMR moment. Driving down this long road with sheep on one side and cows galloping on the other. Green grass everywhere, with my Celtic Irish women playing in the background. And all of a sudden we look up, and there's just this beautiful, not one, but double rainbow casting over our car. And it didn't just happen once. It happened multiple times.
Like 4 or 5 times.
4 or 5 times we saw these rainbows just casting over us, and it was just, the mini boat magic was there in the car. I'm telling you, it was just, let's talk about the week end, shall we?
So Saturday morning, we met Noreen Burke at the Galway Atlantiquaria, which is the small little aquarium in Galway. So nice of Noreen to take her Saturday morning and hang out with us all morning.
All morning. This was my geek moment, to be completely honest with you. At the University of New England, I also minor in aquaculture and aquarium sciences. It was such an amazing facility with so many just diverse organisms, and the displays were just gorgeous.
At one point, it was really interesting. I had asked her, how did you get to be the director of this aquarium, right? Like, because I was really interested in everyone's pathway and their stories for how they got to these places. Mm-hmm. She said, I grew up on a farm. And I just thought that was really interesting, that she didn't necessarily have I want to be a marine biologist, I want to live in the ocean. It was, her path just kind of took her there. Mm-hmm. So I love hearing those stories. So after the tour, the tank tours, we sat and had
more tea,
more delicious snacks. I can't remember the names of any of them, but the hospitality is absolutely outstanding. I think I had coffee at that point because it was raining and we needed a little Java.
Chocolate. That was wonderful.
So we got to sit with Noreen, and so another role Noreen plays is she runs the Irish Ocean Literacy Network, and she's also heavily involved in the All Atlantic Blue Schools. So this was a really great opportunity to sit and chat with her because Lisa's school is actually pursuing certification as a USA Blue School. So we were really able to have that conversation, sit around the table and just talk about project ideas and how do you move forward ocean education on a bigger scale, but also being a part of, one small school. So that was a really great opportunity to chat about that. And we got to talk a little bit more about the Marine Explorers program, which has been another great initiative to bring in ocean education, kind of connect everybody around Ireland. But there's this bridge, there's this connection that the Miniboats and EP provides to connect everyone around the ocean. And it's not just one project, one classroom, one beach cleanup. I think it's the bigger conversations, right? Like you're doing with Mini Maine and the students between Maine and Ireland. That we need to talk to each other more and collaborate more and fix the ocean.
Yeah, because genuinely, that's what connects us. And, being able to talk about these things with students from both sides and, get that global perspective of our connecting ocean, I think is something rare, but needs to be more normalized.
Right. And share ideas and work together to getting more people involved in doing that. While we were sitting there, we had invited Peter Kane to come by. I know Peter from one of these Explorers education programs. So Peter and his school, Kilglass National School, was actually the first Irish school to be certified as an EU Blue School. And he did that with the Miniboat project. So it was really great to meet Peter and to talk about, again, that experience and the work he does and kind of what more can we do. And him and his students are really interested in doing more Miniboat projects, which is great. Mm-hmm. And really loops into that conversation we were having about how do we do more and get more people involved. We also ended up reconnecting with another Miniboat from Maine, from Swans Island, called Black Rock, which landed up near the Cliffs of Moher back in 2017. Mm-hmm. And our last day on our way to the airport, we went to the University of Limerick, which still has the boat on the shelf and wants to do something with it.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was so cool when we visited the University of Limerick and being able to see the boat was the excitement from the professors and the grad students of this project. And what was really cool was Gare was talking even about how there's a school literally across the street from the University of Limerick. And
that his son goes to, I think.
Something like that. And he was like, oh, I can bring it over there and they could rebuild it and we could do this and we could do that. And there was even more opportunity for the grad students to connect with students from that school across the road or whatever. And
right. Well, this model of mentorship, exactly what you're doing at the university. But speaking of grad students, so when Gare was taking us around, he introduced us to this guy, Petar, who said, yeah, I recovered the boat. And he was a grad student at the time. Now he's doing his postdoc. He pulled up the website and he said, yeah, that's me. And so he remembered that, recovering it, but really wants to connect back with the students that launched it. So we also have that opportunity now. So after the University of Limerick, and again, that was another quick 30-minute tour. Really glad we did it.
Yeah.
But we had to rush and make our flight.
And I cried a little inside.
I cried a lot. It was really tough to leave. But it was also amazing.
Yeah, I honestly, words don't do all of the things that we did justice. It was not only an amazing trip that felt so right, and I think for me personally, it's very rare for me to feel like I'm meant to be somewhere, I'm meant to be here, I'm meant to do this, in the long term. And our trip, genuinely, we were meant to be there. We were meant to make those connections, because this is gonna push Educational Passages to the next level, I think, of making those global connections, of bringing communities together globally, not just locally. And there's so much potential even with just one trip that I think really, I don't know if it opened your eyes, it opened my eyes to the potential of this becoming really, really big.
And it's amazing to actually resurface something like the Mini Main that was one of the very first mini boats to be launched. And that the Crimson Tide that was launched with it, 12 years ago now, are all back out in the ocean or getting back out there. And it's eye-opening for me to be able to kind of offer maybe a new program or a new initiative for Educational Passages that is focusing on relaunches and connections, and that it's more than a mini boat. Absolutely. But it's more than new mini boats.
Much more than that. You're making connections, you're helping students, helping teachers, helping communities, and ultimately helping the world.
You have been listening to the Educational Passages podcast. Educational Passages is a nonprofit organization. Please consider making a donation to help us continue our work bringing people together to learn more about the ocean. To donate, head over to educationalpassages.org/support. If you're enjoying this program, please consider subscribing to the podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, or from wherever you download your podcasts. Thanks for listening.